Make no mistake about it, man has great potential for harm. After all, man has fallen into sin. Man has a sin nature. Every man, every single man coming into the world has great potential to do harm in his life. Could we just all agree with that? But now, does that mean that man is absolutely condemnable today for all the things that have gone wrong? Do we look for a man to blame? Do we destroy the history of nations because someone gets in their head an idea that the heads of families are to be destroyed? We need balance, don't we? We need balance. I want to point out to you the case of a man today. He had great potential. He was born, as they say, with a silver spoon in his mouth. Bloodline, he's got it. Wealth, Fame, yes. A name, 2 Samuel in chapter 3, the man, biblical Absalom. David was the shepherd boy who became the king. Saul had already gone under. Saul was a man who had lost his way, and he'd lost the kingdom consequently, and the Lord said, go to Jesse's house. So Samuel, the king maker, went to Jesse's house, and they run out the first boy. He was the tall boy, Eliab, and the Lord said, Samuel, that's not the one. So they ran out the second tallest boy. That's not him either. They ran out so many boys, the sun's going down on them, and Samuel said, Jesse, are there any more? I don't see any. He said, well, there is one more. He's the lad, but he's out. I didn't have him here for the feast. He's out keeping the sheep. Well, go get him. The Lord said, anoint him. That's the one. The shepherd boy who became a king. In the chapters of the life of David that go up and down like a great novel came the joy of childbearing. Pick it up with me, 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. You know the story well. David was anointed to be the king. That's as good as a done deal. Yet Saul is still occupying the throne. He's chunking spears at the boy who used to play music to help relax his vexed soul, while a devil vexed him. Music brought from Saul's harp would be a calming effect on Saul, but Saul hated David. He began the habit of chucking spears at him in the palace. Twice David, out on the battlefield, spared the life of Saul, and he always returned to this truth: never raise your hand against the Lord's anointed. I will give that to you today as well. Don't raise your hand against the Lord's anointed, because you would then come under the stiff arm effect of God himself. The Lord knows what he's doing. He raises up and he removes them from the throne. But David, twice when he could have slit Saul's throat, wouldn't do it because of that principle in his life that was very active. Boy, could David have ever used some men who believed in that principle, who thought it their duty, their role in life to bring themselves, though they had no anointing at all for the future, but they felt qualified to bring themselves against the Lord's anointed David the king. Among them, this third-born son, Absalom. So in this long period of war come the children now. Verse 2, and unto David were sons born in Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon. Remember that name, Amnon. He's the firstborn child. And Hinaham, the Jezreelitess. And his second, here's the second-born son. Rush quickly, the middle of verse 3, Absalom, the son of Micah. Remember Micah. She's a little temperamental, but now she gives the third-born son. So you see, these sons are being born from different women. What was the warning of Deuteronomy 17? Don't multiply women and horses. It's not a good mix for a king. But these different women are bringing different sons into the world. This one, Absalom, we're going to concentrate on. His name means of peace. You could write that in the margin of your Bible, of peace. So verse 1 is very clear. There was long war, and in this long war, David must be so tired of it between the house of Saul and his own house. And so he names his third-born son of peace. What a great name. What a great name, of peace. But this boy then seems to miss that attribute in his own life. Where is there ever peace with this third-born child, Absalom? You could leave 2 Samuel 3. Meet me now in 2 Samuel 13. And here's where the story picks up with Absalom and his brother Amnon. And it came to pass, verse 1, chapter 13, after this, that Absalom the son of David had a fair sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon the son of David loved her. So we have here Absalom the thirdborn and his sister born of the same mother. So there was a special relationship here between Absalom and his sister Tamar. But then there's a brother, Amnon, who shares the dad but not the mom, verse 2. And Amnon was so vexed that he fell sick for his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything to her. So Amnon sees his half-sister. He thinks she's beautiful. He falls in, quote, love with her and feels he can't do a thing about it. So he's going to bed at night, unable to sleep, unable to get her off his mind. Well, he has a friend named Jonadab. Everybody needs a treacherous friend to lead them into treachery, huh? Not at all. But there is Jonadab, not missing a good opportunity to trouble this one, Amnon. Verse 3, but Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab. Verse 4, and he said unto him, why art thou, being the king's son, lean from day to day? Wilt thou not tell me? And Amnon, what's wrong with you, boy? Just tell me. You are none other than the king's son. Why would you have a sad look on your face? You own the earth. Just tell me what's wrong. Maybe I can help you out. Verse 4, he said to him, why art thou, being the king's son, lean from day to day? Wilt thou not tell me? And Amnon said unto him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. And Jonadab said unto him, lay thee down on thy bed and make thyself sick. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. When you are in it and you begin to play psychological games with yourself to make yourself sick, to gain an advantage over somebody, check yourself at the door. Faking sickness is not cool. But that's going to be the game here that Amnon is going to play. So he acts as though he's sick. They send word to David, verse 7. David sent home to Tamar, saying, go now to thy brother Amnon's house and dress him meat. That's the request. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was laid down, and she took flour and kneaded it and made cakes in his sight and did bake the cakes. Now, this apparently is a very virtuous girl. She's a virgin. She's a hard worker. She's now obeyed her father. She's now gone to her brother's house, and now she's cooking up the food to help her sick half-brother. Verse 9, she took a pan and poured them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, have out all men from me. And they went out every man from him. Now let me say a word here for our blessed girls. Girls, you've got to own this. You have to understand this, that God has given you something desirable to men. This is a fact and force of nature. You need discernment. You need discernment. Many are the men cooking up plans to take from you that which God uses to call you fair. Not only are men cooking up what they can take from you, but sometimes they have the advice of other treacherous men to help them do this. Many is the girl who is virtuous in her heart, but lacks discernment needed against such men. There's a reason to anticipate. There's a reason to be very observant. There's a reason to be alert and read the room of what is going on at every given time, because these stories are too many to tell. And they all end in sheer disaster. But a little discernment can go a long way, girls, to help you away from men who are so dark-hearted like this that they will take away the very thing that makes you unique in the Creator's eyes. Is that good? Is that good? Foresight, discernment, anticipation. So this guy now who fakes sickness now is refusing to eat. And now, on top of that, he asks that all the men leave the house. Can you tell, is this going somewhere? Is it becoming shadowed in the house? Everybody go out. No, I don't want to eat this in here in the living room. Bring it into my bedroom. I'll probably be hungry in there. And Amnon said unto Tamar, bring the meat into the chamber, that I may eat of thine hand. Thine hand? There's a time to say you might be the king's son, but king's sons have hands too on the ends of their arm. You handle the chicken leg. We need discernment. We need anticipation. We need some foresight. And when she had brought them unto him to eat, he took hold of her and said unto her, come, lie with me, my sister. And she answered him, see the virtue in her, nay, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not thou this folly, and I, whither shall I cause my shame to go? And as for thee, thou shalt be as one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. Howbeit he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her. And Amnon said unto her, there it is. This is the way it always ends, girls. Discernment, anticipation, forethought about this. The songwriter wrote, I must have been through about 1 million girls. I'd love them and leave them alone. Their tears left me cold as a stone. Well, Amnon is a very evil person here. And now he's taken out the trash. Verse 16, she said unto him, there's no cause. This evil in sending me away is greater than the other that thou didst unto me. But he would not hearken unto her. Absalom loved that sister of his. He hears the news, and I want you to see his response, verse 21. But when King David heard of all these things, he was very wroth. Now, I want you to see this. The Bible says David is very mad. But what does David do? It's not recorded. Apparently, David immediately goes passive and doesn't do. And Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon neither good nor bad. For Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. So Absalom is a seething, burning coal who tells nothing good or nothing bad to his brother. A seething man is not a good thing. It's going to come out. It's going to blow up. It's going to be ugly. Bitterness is battery acid, and the human soul was never made as a container for it. Verse 23, it came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. Now, here's the story. He invites all the king's sons and David the king himself to come out to his sheep shearing. David said, well, that's too many of us. We don't all need to leave town. And so Absalom presses David, verse 26, that at least Amnon would be able to go. Then said Absalom, if not, I pray thee, let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said unto him, why should he go with thee? Do you think David has a little forewarning, a little anticipation? Does David have a little bit of discernment here that 2 of his sons are at odds with each other? That they have not spoken to one another for over 700 days? And now all of a sudden the one is asking the other to come out to his place? Is there a hint in verse 26 that David thinks something is astir? 27, but Absalom pressed him that he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Now Absalom had commanded his servant, saying, quote, mark ye now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. Oh, brother, now we're going to mix alcoholic beverages into the mix of seething, silent hatred between 2 brothers who share a father but 2 different mothers. When his heart is merry with wine, and when I say unto you, smite Amnon, then kill him. Fear not, have not I commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant. How much courage does it take to run a sword through a drunk man? And the servants of Absalom did unto Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Where's David in all this? David still loves his son. He's gone silent. He's brooding. But make no mistake about it, inside David is the love of a father. Skip, verse 37. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom fled and went to Geshur and was there 3 years. And the soul, watch this, of King David longed to go forth unto Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, seeing he was dead. So here's a man whose soul is longing to go see his son. He's been 2 years away from him. Now 3 years are going by. 5 years and no significant communication that we know of between a father and his son. The father is longing inside to do something, but no record that the something is done that needs to be done. My, how the years fly past. I know a father who had significant failure in his life, both as a man, as a minister, and as a father. And the son grew up and he himself went into the ministry. and proceeded, by his own word, to not speak to his father for 30 years. While training other men to love the Lord and love their neighbor as themselves. If you have forfeited the opportunity to speak to your father for 30 years, how goes your ministry to other men? And then one day something happens, something breaks between the two. Verse 21 of chapter 14, the king said unto Joab, behold now, Joab is the general, so to speak, the secretary of state, maybe. I have done this thing. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. Verse 24, and the king said, let him turn to his own house and let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house and saw not the king's face. So after being away for 5 years, David sends his secretary of state to bring Absalom back to his own home. But David will not see Absalom face to face. So the time goes on. Verse 25, but in all Israel there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot even to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. This is the vanity of Absalom if you're taking notes here. No blemish. From the bottom of his foot to the top of his hairy head. This is one handsome man. Verse 26, and when he polled his head, that is when he got a haircut, for it was at every year's end that he polled it, because the hair was heavy on him, therefore he polled it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. Is there a man in the building who weighs his hair? When you go and get that annual haircut, do you know of a man who weighs his hair? I don't know of a woman who weighs her hair. This guy is, as old Doc Cameron used to say, full of himself. He weighed his hair and not a blemish. Look, when he looked into the mirror smiles. There's none like him. What a good-looking boy with his long, wavy hair. But he's full of treachery. Here's what happened. Absalom is tired of being left alone. Look, Absalom desires newspaper clippings. Absalom desires a social media presence. And all of a sudden he's home. He happens to be the king's son. And it's eating at him that there's no celebrity. You remember Joab? Joab, the Secretary of State, the general, the right-hand man of David. He has a field next to Absalom's house. You won't believe this. Unbelievable. Verse 30. Therefore he said unto his servant, see, Joab's field is near mine, and he had barley there. Go and set it on fire. He sets the field of barley that belongs to Joab on fire just to get Joab's attention, because he is tired of the lack of spotlight, limelight, adoration. Look, there's not a blemish in me, but who knows it? Who knows how much my hair weighed? Probably nobody. They ignore me, but I'm somebody here. Go set his field on fire. That'll get his attention. Boy, can't men be something? This is why I'm telling you this. I'm giving a call today for respect for fathers. I'm giving a call today to honor those who are building something great with life, but at the same time, I'm giving a warning to every man. You have it inside you to be a user, an abuser, a manipulator. You have it inside you to be eaten up with pride and treachery. You have it inside you to run over others, to knock them down, to try and raise up yourself, and to trample them while you climb the ladder of what you think is your own success. This is really in us all, so the call here is for humility. And Absalom is sorely lacking in that department, so he sets the field on fire, and that gets Joab riled up. And here's what Absalom says when Joab comes running to ask him, "Why'd you set my field on fire?" Verse 32, Absalom answered Joab, "Behold, I send unto thee, saying, Come hither, that I may send thee to the king to say, Wherefore am I come from Geshur? It had been good for me to have been there still. Now therefore let me see the king's face. And if there be any iniquity in me," can you believe that? Absalom is so vain, he seriously is asking that question. He's dancing in front of the king's face, saying, "How dare you not speak to me? If there's iniquity in me, go ahead and kill me, hot shot. But whatever you do, don't you dare ignore me. I'm a good-looking man." And in response to this, verse 33, so Joab came to the king and told him, and when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. This is the formal niceness of two men who are not doing what needs to be done. They've gone 5 years without having sincere communication between them. And now, in the formal nicety of the moment, the one kisses the ground and the one kisses the face of the one who kissed the ground, and they walk away from that conversation having healed nothing. And the barrier is a tall wall between them. Now Absalom goes to work. Verse 1, chapter 15. Came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the way of the gate. And it was so that when any man that had a controversy came to the king for judgment, then Absalom called unto him and said, Of what city art thou? And he said, Thy servant is one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said unto him, See, thy matters are good and right, but there's no man deputed of the king to hear thee. What's he saying? Hey, friend, what's your concern today? Oh, yes, I know where you're coming from, bud. Yeah, I know. Your matter is important. It ought to be told to the king, but we don't have a king like the one you need. We got a king who hasn't even put anybody in charge of taking care of your great and wonderful concerns. Boy, if I was ever king, I know what I would do. And Absalom, verse 4, said, Moreover, oh, that I were made judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice. And it was so that when any man came nigh to him to do him obeisance, he put forth his hand and took him and kissed him. And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom, here it is, stole the hearts of the men of Israel. It came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said unto the king, I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow which I vowed unto the Lord in Hebron. Here goes the outbreak of Absalom's total rebellion against his own father. What is the father's crime? Not giving him enough attention. And Absalom thinks that all of his crime is less than that of his father, apparently. So he raises a rebellion, and David goes on the run. He knows what's happened. Verse 13, there came a messenger to David saying, the hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. And David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, Arise and let us flee, for we shall not else escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart. David and all his mighty armies are now on the run, fleeing the city. Isn't this an amazing thing? That's what 40 years of treachery can do to a man. Verse 21. And Ahithophel said unto Absalom, Go in unto thy father's concubines, which he had left to keep the house, and all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. So they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went in unto his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. So a tent goes up on the top of the palace. You remember what else happened on the top of that palace one day while David was overseeing the kingdom? And now a crime 1,000 times worse happens on top of that palace. Well, this has to end somewhere. Pick it up in chapter 18 at the battle of Mount Ephraim. Verse 1, David numbered the people that were with him and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. And David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab. Skip. Verse 5. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. What did he say? We've got to win this war and restore the kingdom. But please, whatever you do, if you capture my son, deal gently with him. David still has inside him the love of a champion. It hasn't played out very well, has it, over the last 45 years? But he doesn't want harm to come to Absalom. Verse 9, and Absalom met the servants of David. And Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak. Remember that hair? Remember that long, luscious, wavy, curly hair? It's now caught in the boughs of an oak tree. He was taken up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. And a certain man saw it and told Joab and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. And Joab said unto the man that told him, And behold, thou sawest him, and why didst thou not smite him there to the ground? And I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. And the man said unto Joab, Though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet would I not put forth mine hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged thee and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life. For there is no matter hid from the king, and thou myself wouldest have set thyself against me. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand and thrust them through the heart of Absalom while he was yet alive in the midst of the oak. They buried that body and heaped rubble on top of the grave. Skip. Verse 29. Here comes the news of Absalom's death to his father. And the king said, Is that young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. Do you think he knows? 30. And the king said unto him, Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And behold, Cushai came. And Cushai said, Tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, the enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went thus, he said, O my son, Absalom, my son, Absalom, would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. I don't know any sadder picture than that pitiful picture of David wailing, my son, Absalom. Oh, that I would have died in your place. Men, we need a warning like this, don't we? In a fast-moving world and so many evil influences on us, with so many needs everywhere and so many opportunities and the world moving faster than ever before, the potential for disaster is great, and it's against every one of us. So I put a humble warning out in front of us all. Take heed, lest we go in the way of Absalom. We need truth and we need grace. What could that man's life have been with truth in it every day, and with the grace of God leading him in the way of his life? And instead, there lie the bones of Absalom in an unmarked grave under an oak tree. And David, who will go to his own grave, having never gotten over the loss of his son. What is it in my life right now that I have allowed that is taking root, that one day will grow into the tree of my own destruction? What is it, men, that would cause us to neglect a child, to not provide training in the truth and grace of God? What is it that we might lack to give a child that this is the order that we got from God Almighty, the order that we walk in forever? What is it that would rob us of the joy of bouncing a boy or a grandchild or a daughter on a knee and instructing them in the ways of God, of old grandpa? Boy, I would tell you, what could we say if we gain the whole world and lose our own families? Let that hand represent you. Let my wallet represent your sin. The Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Here's the greatest love story of a father. There is God Almighty, holy, without sin. There we are, separated from Him. If we die in that state, we spend eternity separated from Him in a place called hell. God didn't want that to happen. God took on flesh. Jesus Christ is His name. He came down into our world. The Bible says He who knew no sin became sin for us, that we might be made the righteousness of God in Him. Friend, you can never get to God in yourself. Your very best religious effort would fall so short of God, it will pale into nothingness. But the way in is through what Jesus did when He died for your sin, paid the price of death, 3 days later rose from the dead, and now offers you the gift of God, everlasting life by faith alone in Jesus Christ. Would you bow your head with me? Would you close your eyes? Men, in the sound of my voice, leave you alone in the quietness of your own mind. What does the message mean to you? Is there a warning to heed? Is there a call into something else? Is there a screaming voice inside you right now that's an alarm buzzer? It's going off. It says a seed has been planted in your soul. You're watering it right now. It's growing, and one day it will destroy the very things you wish you would have had.